The revolution is real, it's live, and as some comrades say, it's lit, right? lit. Real, live, lit. Right? The revolution is lit.
Uhuru, comrades, and welcome to today's Omali Taught Me Sunday Study, live with the leader of the African nation, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. My name is Akile Anai, the Director of Agitation and Propaganda for the African People's Socialist Party, and I will be your host for this morning. Today's study is themed Not One Step Backward, a year in review with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Today's special episode will be summing up the year 2023, a turning point in world history. As we'll review, the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru movement continue to chart the way forward toward a liberated Africa, the liberation of all colonized and oppressed peoples, and the destruction of the colonial mode of production. We take a look back at just some of the work we did as we look toward the new year for greater growth, increased influence, the charges dropped on the Uhuru 3, and much more. Our program for today is as follows. I'll be providing a snapshot overview of our 2023 year. Then we'll turn it over to the leader of the African nation, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has, for more than 50 years, provided leadership for the worldwide anti-colonial struggle, this past year being no exception. Following, we'll move to announcements before closing. And of course, before we start, take a moment to like and share this video on your page, on your channel. Tag everyone that you believe should be a part of this discussion. Share widely so that the masses of our people can see what's possible through organization. The colonial state and its media, including these platforms we're using now, would have us believe that our victory isn't possible, that when the state in the form of the FBI comes knocking, we're supposed to retreat. This year in review exposes the truth of what can happen when we fight back. Show the people, damn it. Like and share this video right now and put in the comments hashtag shared, hashtag like once you've done it. And don't forget to tell us where you're tuning in from. So thank you, comrades, for your participation and pushing back against censorship, fighting for the rights of anti-colonial free speech just by merely sharing and liking this video, getting it out, getting this discussion broadly out into the world. That's how you push back. That's how you engage in the movement for anti-colonial free speech. So why don't we begin taking a look back at 2023? And again, this is a snapshot of what it is that the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, in the mix of everything that's unfolding throughout the world. And, we're just taking a brief look here at what went down. So again, 2023 marks world turning point. We can go to the next slide. So January, we kicked off the year just days ahead of MLK Day. We had a press conference right after a church building in St. Louis, Missouri, that the party was in the process of purchasing mysteriously caught fire, destroying the property. And this, we would learn, would be the beginning of the US government attacks on the economic institutions in 2023. And it's important to remember on July 29th, 2022, they initiated these attacks on the Uhuru movement, on Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And the attacks did not stop. They continued through the form of economic sanctions, which we'll talk about momentarily. But this began, right in January. And we also kicked off the year with the unity of St. Louis Alderman Jesse Todd by presenting the Dred Scott City of Refuge Sanctuary City Resolution, giving local governments an opportunity to stand on the right side of history in defense of those working to uplift the communities of which they are a part. So comrades organized and participated in Board of Aldermen sessions, and to raise the question of the sanctuary city, put forward this resolution, and put it out there for other governments and for other politicians to adopt, for those who claim to be progressive to take a progressive stance and, uphold the resolution for sanctuary cities to ensure that African people are able to organize in their community, such as the work that the Uhuru movement, such as the work as the African People Education and Defense Fund does inside the African community to transform the conditions of poverty, humiliation, and despair that's imposed on us. So that January, we came barreling through the door in 2023. In February, the US government escalates its attacks against the Uhuru movement with assaults on the economic institutions. Regions Bank, after a 20-plus year relationship with APEDF, unexpectedly closed accounts and called back loans. And in Florida, Pinellas County Commission rescinds previously awarded grant funds to Black Power 96.3 FM, a project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. And in response to this, in St. Petersburg, Florida, Black Power 96 held a petition drive, getting over 600 signatures in just 1 week, led by station manager Eddie Maltzby, calling on the commission to restore the funds. And comrades also organized and attended Pinellas County Commission meetings and spoke out and also delivered, statements of support at our concerts held by Black Power 96 Radio, challenging, the rescinding of the funds by the Pinellas County Commission. And in March, the African National Women's Organization and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement held their powerful annual conventions. You'll see here comrades of the African National Women's Organization at the Black Power Vanguard's basketball court, which we'll talk about also in just a moment. And on to your right, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's national convention, which also featured the attorneys of the Uhuru Three. So continuing in March, we did not take these attacks laying down. We organized through the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, the campaign to boycott Regions Bank, and there were demonstrations throughout the country and also call-ins and social media storms and a demonstration and teach-in mobilized at the headquarters for Regions Bank in Birmingham, Alabama. And also in March, Chairman Omali Yeshitela brings down the House at Answer Rally in Washington, D.C., raising up the campaign for Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, highlighting the true basis of the FBI attacks, the U.S. government assault on the Black liberation movement in the form of African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And in April, just a month after the chairman delivers this powerful presentation in Washington, D.C., the U.S. government announced indictments against Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, the Uhuru Three, on bogus foreign agent charges. Also in April, the colonial crisis deepens in Sudan. The Black is Back Coalition conducts its 7th annual electoral campaign school, and the Black Power Blueprint unveils outdoor event space in St. Louis, Missouri. So we're not missing a beat. These assaults coming down on us from the U.S. government, we exemplify. We are not retreating, we are building. In May, the annual Black Mothers March on the White House, the first Uhuru Three court appearance in Tampa Federal Courthouse in Florida. And at this court appearance, we had comrades, the Uhuru Three, making their first appearance, and how they would literally have Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three in these, shackles, these leg iron chains and these cuffs, and walking them, into the courtroom. And, this, again, with these bogus, Russian agent, charges that are being made against our movement. And so these are the kinds of conditions, the kind of, processes that, our comrades were, subjected to, through this process. But the first court appearance had, a well-attended contingent that was a part of their family coming in from out of town, comrades locally here coming to the courtroom to stand with the Uhuru Three. And again, we have the annual Black Mothers March on the White House, coordinated through a coalition of organizations and led by the African National Women's Organization. And also in May, we had the Hands Off Uhuru campaign chair, Mwezi Odom, who brought the campaign to Cuba with the Hands Off Cuba Committee, and, really forming important relationships, right there with the organizations, that were present, again, bringing the Hands Off Uhuru campaign around the world to be adopted, by comrades throughout the world, recognizing it as their struggle. And in May was the African Liberation Day and Hands Off Uhuru National Day of Action. And these, on the right-hand side, you'll see the top photo of the African Liberation Day and National Day of Action in occupied Azania, or South Africa. And we also have on the bottom the Hands Off Uhuru National Day of Action that took place in San Diego, California. And these actions took place in over 20 locations throughout the world. Around the world, the demand to drop the charges against the Uhuru Three and Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa could be heard. That's just the month of May, comrades. And in June, under the brilliant leadership of Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, and again, in the beginning of the year, the US government escalated its attacks on the economic programs, and the basis for this was to ensure that they could strangle the economic institutions, preventing, the Uhuru movement and organizations like the African People's Education Defense Fund from doing the work, the necessary work that it does to transform the conditions and lives of African people, to overturn the verdict of colonialism in our lives. And APDF having, created these incredible institutions, programs that are, right now, as we speak, transforming the lives of African people in St. Louis, Missouri, and everywhere that the Black Power Blueprint extends. But again, didn't miss a beat. Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela fired back even harder, and the Black Power Blueprint unveiled the grand opening of the Black Power Vanguard's basketball court. And you can see here just the incredible, festivities and Africans coming out, playing basketball, performances, dance troops, and, and so much more, right here at the Black Power Vanguard's basketball court. And really want to salute the leadership of Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela and the work of the Black Power Blueprint and all of the economic development work, which we'll also see more of in this presentation. So, comrades, the Black Power Vanguard's basketball court opened up in June, Uhuru. And in July, African uprisings in France occurred after the colonial state murdered 17-year-old Nahel, who was an African, of Morocco and Algerian descent, and was shot down just as Mike Brown and, Eric Garner and, and Africans here killed in the United States. The same kind of colonial state in France murders, 17-year-old Nahel, and it sparked uprising, in France. And also in July, the Black Power Blueprint African Independence Workforce Program had a grand opening and dedication ceremony for the fourplex housing, and with the performance from Carolyn Lake, the wife of Mafundi Lake, who the fourplex is dedicated to. Also in July, African political prisoner Mutulu Shakur passes away, and after, shortly just after having been released from the colonial prison system, at the point where he was already, in the process of dying. And this is the kind of situation that we're confronted with, that our political prisoners who are, still locked up today are dealing with, where the state doesn't release them until, they deem them no longer a threat, no longer able to fully participate in the African liberation struggle. And, Comrade Mutulu Shakur, was no different in this regard, where the colonial state, released him, towards the end of his life, and then, he passes away shortly after. And so, and also in July, more than 40 organizations across the political spectrum come together and unite to form the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition to defend the right to anti-colonial free speech. This is the, the first time something like this occurred in history in terms of a coalition process like this, and forces uniting under the leadership of African and colonized people to forward anti-colonial free speech. And also in July, the Uhuru 3 attorneys file a powerful motion to dismiss that shreds the bogus charges made by the US government. And also Niger erupts with rebellion. And you can see, and this is still the case today, but in Africa, and especially in these places that's called like the Francophone countries, dominated, the economy is dominated by the colonial power of France, where Africans are rising up, against colonialism, saying France must go. And here, this last photo on the right, we can see, Niger again erupting with rebellion, demanding France out of Niger, France out of Africa. In August, Burning Spear Publications publishes The Verdict is In, Reparations Now. This is an historical account of the World Tribunal on Reparations to African People that was held in 1982. Also, Africans Unite and Fight Colonizers Attacking African Workers in Alabama coined the Riverfront Brawl. Colonial wildfires ravage Maui, Hawaii. The African National Women's Organization hosts the Arrest CPS National Day of Action. The Black is Back hosts its annual conference themed Not One Step Back, Drop the Charges Now. In September, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement hosts its annual convention to deepen the counteroffensive and to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. In September, more than 60 persons were indicted on bogus RICO charges in the Stop Cop City struggle. And this is all a part of, the attacks, the assaults being made on, the democratic rights of African and colonized people to just be able to express that our opposition to this social system, to be able to express anti-colonial free speech, to be able to engage in protests and mobilizations that raises up our demands, that criticizes the existence of colonialism in our everyday lives. And so you have the colonial state who fabricates bogus charges, and this being the same situation in the Stop Cop City struggle, where these comrades are being indicted on RICO charges, trumped up charges, all of these things that are fabricated to ensure that African and colonized people are not allowed to struggle, are not even able to say that we are opposed to what it is that this system does to our people every single day. And the motion to dismiss, we have a hearing on the motion to dismiss in Tampa, Florida, also, that occurred on September 28th, where the judge granted oral arguments. And so the Uhuru 3 came to Tampa, Florida, along with the attorneys. We packed the courthouse with all the flood of the supporters. So the state sees this, feels this, and as a consequence of the powerful motion to dismiss, the powerful counteroffensive that we've been engaged in for more than a year, and all of the work of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement and the World Turning Point, all of this has impacted them so much so that they have not even been able to reach a determination about, on the motion to dismiss. We're still waiting, on this determination. So this happened again in September 28th, where we presented this motion to dismiss in oral arguments in Tampa, Florida. And Chairman Omali also began his book tour across the U.S., where we, promoted the book, The Verdict is In, Reparations Now. And St. Louis comrades host the Speak Up, Speak Out fundraiser in defense of anti-colonial free speech. And want to recognize comrades Fofi and, the comrades on the ground in St. Louis who, take this campaign, in this front with the cultural workers and uplift, anti-colonial free speech through the culture, through poetry, through music, through all of these venues that we are able to use to exercise, to be able to put forward our struggle and our own interests. So, and there were so many different fundraisers, so many different actions that occurred, again, to raise up, the question and in defense of anti-colonial free speech. So remember September, Uhuru. October, we saw the eruption of anti-colonial struggle deepening with the fight for the liberation of Palestine from the settler colonial state of Israel. And we say, free, free Palestine, Gaza, Gaza, hold the line, victory to Palestine. And continuing in October, the chairman tours the U.S. West Coast as part of the annual Days of Reparations to African People tour. And we have Chairman Omali Yeshitela pictured here with members of Unión do Barrio, the fraternal organization, the Mexican Liberation Organization, to which we've had a fraternal relationship with for more than 40 or almost 40 years now with Unión do Barrio. And also the African People's Education and Defense Fund and Black Power 96 file a lawsuit against the Pinellas County Commission for return of the stolen grant money, now on 2 occasions, one from Black Power 96 Radio and another from APEDF for a backup generator at the St. Petersburg Uhuru House. So APDF officially launched a lawsuit, and also there was the annual March for Reparations in St. Louis, hosted by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And we're not done. In October, the party also acquired an office in the DC, Maryland, Virginia region, also known as the DMV in the Northeast US. Shout out to comrades, Northern Regional Rep, Comrade Emmanuel Lucade, Comrade Yejide Odumila, Comrade Kiongozi, and all the comrades in the Northern region who secured this victory of an organizing space for the party in the DMV. And also in October, African political prisoner Rochelle McGee passes away, known as the oldest political prisoner inside the U.S. Colonial concentration camps, passes away in October. Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles closes in Oakland and Philadelphia after a collective more than 50 years of service to the African community. And in Philadelphia, the city council passes a resolution recognizing the community impact and contribution of USC for 30 years under the leadership of the deputy chair, Omali Yeshitela. And APDF, makes the statement that Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles is closing, but APDF is moving forward. Uhuru. And salute to the brilliant and incredible legacy history of Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles and the incredible support, that came out, and, all of the people who had, just these stories after decades of working in these stores, or customers who have shopped with these stores, volunteers who have, worked with these stores over, the last several decades in Oakland, California, and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just showing again the tremendous impact of these institutions led by the African working class. And November was the kickoff. The kickoff for November was the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations 15th annual Black People's March on the White House. And this time, it wasn't just in Washington, D.C., it was around the world. The Black People's March on U.S. Embassies in London, in Pretoria, South Africa, comrades in Sierra Leone marched from the Togran community 8 miles to the Freetown International Airport. We had a mobilization in Los Angeles, California, a mobilization in Liberia, West Africa, and Sierra Leone. And you can see here just some images, just some snapshots of these demonstrations that occurred, throughout the world, raising up the demand to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. In November, leading up to the Black is Back's 15th annual Black People's March, white left opportunists attempted to co-opt the Palestinian liberation struggle while using it as a cover to attack the Black liberation movement. The African People's Socialist Party launched fierce criticism of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, or PSL, and their masked front, the Answer Coalition, led by Brian Becker. And the Uhuru Solidarity Movement hosts its powerful 24-hour reparations telethon, raising resources for the African People's Education and Defense Fund. And yes, comrades, they were nonstop for 24 hours with dynamic programming, interviews, and discussion while raising resources for the programs of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. Uhuru. And in December, the Burning Spear newspaper turns 55 years old, founded by Chairman Omali Yeshitela in 1968, that originally appeared in mimeograph form, and our first tabloid edition of being printed in 1969 with the front cover being the mural that Chairman Omali Yeshitela tore down in 1966 as a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. This is the oldest institution of the African People's Socialist Party. The oldest institution of the African People's Socialist Party. We're going to try to get this slide back up. But just want to salute to the incredible history of the Burning Spear newspaper. We did not, miss a beat, didn't skip a month, 12 continuous issues from January to December, talking about, a range of different events, providing analysis, showing the work of the party, what's happening in all the different areas where we are organizing. And also, of course, covering the campaign to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3, the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign. So salute to the Burning Spear newspaper. Also, felony charges against the Tampa Five were dropped. Tampa Five were a group of students, 5 students and workers, also members of the Students for Democratic Society located on the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida, who are initially facing felony charges and up to 10 years in prison for the protests that they were conducting to challenge, the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' white nationalist regime and taking out Black education, reducing Black enrollment at USF. They were protesting and faced and were brutalized by the campus police and faced up to 10 years in prison. Those felony charges were dropped. And, this was a campaign that we took up inside the anti-colonial free speech movement, recognizing that people have a right to be able to protest, especially when those protests, are supporting the right of African and colonized people. So those comrades' felony charges were dropped. Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab released from U.S. prisons. The Hands Off Uhuru campaign conducted at least 24 online events. I say specifically online events. This does not calculate or take into account all of the on-the-ground demonstrations, protests, fundraisers that conducted for the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, but at least 24 online events in 2023. That makes at least 2 webinars per month. Political prisoner Ed Poindexter passes away, and Ralph Pointer, longtime fighter in the struggle to free our political prisoners, passes away just this past December 25th. We want to say long live to Comrade Ralph Pointer, to Comrades Ed Poindexter, Rochelle McGee, and Comrade Matulu Shakur. So Uhuru comrades, this is a snapshot, just a snapshot picture of our 2023 year in the African People's Socialist Party in the world. There have been numerous demonstrations, fundraisers, meetings, trainings, tour events, webinars, economic development work, as well as many world events that have helped to define this new period that we are in. And this work is happening throughout the world, throughout Africa, where our presence is growing in Azania or South Africa, Namibia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, in Haiti, in Europe, in places like France, Germany, and England, and of course, throughout the US. The party has deepened our anti-colonial solidarity with Unión do Barrio, the Mexican Liberation Organization, the Palestinian Liberation Movement, the anti-colonial struggle of the Filipino people, with the Hands Off Cuba campaign, with the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee, and so many more. And to continue this discussion around this past year, it's my honor now to welcome up the leader of the worldwide African Revolution, again, providing leadership for our struggle for more than 50 years, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. We're bringing in the new year right with Omali Taught Me Sunday Study today. Comrades, make sure to like and share this discussion as we bring on our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and salute to you, Chairman, for the brilliant, steadfast leadership provided for the global anti-colonial struggle. Uhuru, Chairman.
Uhuru, first of all, I want to express my appreciation to your comrade, Director Akile, for hosting this study and for the introduction that you've just provided. And I also would like to say, I'm looking here now, I'm just a bit distracted because I'm trying to see. I would also like to say that what you have just presented is a snapshot. And dealing with the theme that not one step backwards, we say that it's a year in review, but it is a snapshot. And I think that what is very clear by the snapshot that you just provided is that the African People's Socialist Party and our movement We are not just a protest movement or protest party. We're not just an organization that's motivated by whatever is happening at the moment. We are, in fact, connected to a revolutionary philosophy, revolutionary theory. This is the thing that provides a to what end that we are tethered to all the time, so that we are not whiplashed going this way and that way, depending on what happens at the moment, as so many organizations are. And some of the organizations I'm talking about are very busy, and sometimes dramatically so. And it's really important sometimes the protests they are involved in. And we do also involve ourselves in protests. And a lot of times, in fact, at different times, we were the only forces who were doing the protesting. But in every instance, the protests we were involved in was connected to achieving a fundamental strategic aim to forward an African revolution. And I want to be clear about that, because what has occurred in the last period with the military defeat of the African Revolution, that didn't just happen in this country, but it happened throughout the world. Murders of people like Patrice Lumumba, overthrowing people like Kwame Nkrumah, the wounding, capture, and assassination of people like Che Guevara, all around the world. Malcolm X executed, Martin Luther King executed, Fred Hampton executed. All of these events did occur, and they occurred from the perspective of our oppressors, with the intent to make sure that the African Revolution, the Black Revolution, as Malcolm X used to characterize it, which includes the colonial people around the world, never achieved the aim of liberation, of freeing ourselves. And so this mission of freeing ourselves has been lost in the recent period, because when they've killed people like Lumumba and Nkrumah and Malcolm, they didn't just destroy human individuals, their physical presence, but it was a war on the ideas that they represented for total liberation, for ending the oppression of peoples, recognizing that social systems were responsible, recognizing that we were not just contending with bad ideas or with moral deficits on the part of our oppressor or on the part of ourselves, that what we were looking at was a relationship between oppressed and oppressors. And what had to occur was this relationship had to be ended. And the only way it could be ended is for the oppressed to overturn this relationship that we have with our oppression, with our oppressors. That had to occur. And so that required what we characterize as revolution, overturning this relationship, so that possession of the ability of people to pursue their interests, to pursue their material interests can be achieved. That's what it's about. And so if you look at just a snapshot you presented, one thing you clearly were able to demonstrate is that this is a history of our party movement that didn't just start. We're looking at the last year, but you just talked about 50 years ago, the founding of a newspaper to help complete the revolution that the U.S. government and all the colonial powers of the world had determined would be dead. In fact, in 1969, I think it was, the Attorney General of the United States had declared that by the end of the year, the Black Panther Party would be destroyed. And of course, we know in December 1969, they murdered Fred Hampton after having drugged him, making sure that he was absolutely helpless in his bed, and murdered him there. So our party has been involved in overturning this relationship. It's not about just this thing that's happening at the moment. We look at institutions that you talked about. Some of these institutions are very old. Some of them have their origin. You mentioned the Burning Spear newspaper is the oldest institution of the party. And even if you look at the projects that we're talking about now in terms of Black Power Blueprint, this amazing work that's happening primarily centered in St. Louis, but you're looking at a process that began so many years ago where we were determined as the African People's Socialist Party to negate the power and influence of the colonized, of colonialism itself, to wrest from our oppressors the ability to govern ourselves, to feed, clothe, and house ourselves, which is absolutely necessary for people is to ever be free. So this is what we've been about for forever, for the longest period of time. And we were born with the stated intent of completing the Black Revolution of the 60s. Our history goes back to the 1960s, but the formal declaration of the existence of the African People's Socialist Party was in 1972. And so for all that time, we talk about a snapshot of the last year. I think it's really important to talk about what happened in the last year, but I think it's also important to show that the work that we've been involved in for the last year is connected to a greater objective than what we were doing just then, during this time, and what we are doing today. I'm going to share with you briefly, if I may, some excerpts from a political report that I made to the second plenary of the African People's Socialist Party's 7th Congress. And this is really important because this is part of what I'm talking about when I say that we're not just doing stuff, that what we do is connected to strategic objectives for the liberation of our people. And we've defined what those objectives are. And I don't know of another organization in this country and much of the world that has developed a strategic how to win liberation. That's what we're about, not how to defeat Trump, not how to do, even though that may or may not be involved in tactics, but the strategic objectives is something that we have been committed to for a long period of time. And so part of how we keep ourselves on track is we hold congresses, and the congresses right now mandated to occur every 5 years. I think we are a bit late for the Congress that is before us now. But every year between Congresses, we have plenary processes where the entire party internationally comes together and we lay out plans. We assess the contradictions that we're confronted with, the people are confronted with, the whole world is confronted with, and how the struggle of Black people fit in that context. We do that all the time. And so I want to share with you just some excerpt. And here's chapter 1, the introduction to this political report to the plenary, the second plenary that was in 2021. It says that our second plenary of the party's 7th Congress opens with the urgent call for African workers of the world to unite and organize. As 2021 begins, we find ourselves in a historic period that we have long predicted, when imperialism is in its death throes and when crisis never lets up, rolling into every new iteration with greater severity. Literally, the hallowed halls of US imperialism and parasitic capitalism have been breached. A fatal flaw of the oppressor ruling class is the assumption that its security depends on its relationship with other contending or potential rival state power. The fact is that the death of colonial capitalism is being determined by the rise of anti-colonial revolution under the leadership of the African working class, galvanizing exploited, oppressed, and colonized peoples inside the United States and around the world. In 2020, the contradictions of the colonial capitalist system literally exploded into the consciousness of the people of the US and the world on many fronts. But everything about the existence of our party has prepared us for this moment. It has been the ideological and political struggles of our party for nearly 50 years and today that are defining this new period in which anti-colonial revolution is again becoming the main trend in the world. Most nationalists, militants, and ersatz communists are scrambling to make sense of this time, and bereft of revolutionary philosophy are inadvertently or deliberately pushing forward with actions and explanations that at best call for a kinder, gentler system of oppression. Our party is simply on point and on course as planned. We are African internationalists. This speaks to our philosophy stemming from a scientific investigation and analysis of the rise of the most oppressive and exploitative social system that has ever existed in history, and from the standpoint of Africa, Africans, and the colonized and toiling masses of the world. We do not proclaim our readiness for this moment based on some abstract philosophical conclusions. African internationalism, the theory of our party, is a theory of practice. The nearly half century of continuous practice of our party has tested our theory and contributed to our advancement that will prove to be the death of colonial capitalism. The work of the African People's Socialist Party has been one of the factors undermining capitalist colonial cohesion. We have made a major contribution to the destabilization of the system through concrete socialist decolonizing projects and campaigns. We are a part of the existential crisis of this system. Completing the Black Revolution of the 1960s has always been a declared intent of our party. The last year party work and development since the 2020 plenary of our 7th Party Congress indicates that we are well on the way to achieving that end. The African People's Socialist Party has helped deepen the crisis of imperialism through our success in resurrecting the African Revolution from the crushing blows of imperialist counterinsurgency. And then I just want to move forward with a quote, excerpts from that political report, 2021. It says that today, the U.S. colossus that has openly dominated the world as the preeminent imperialist power for more than 70 years, since the end of the Second Imperialist World War, is being exposed as the paper tiger Chinese revolutionaries once derided when China was a leading force in the struggle against colonial capitalist world hegemony. During these 7 decades, the U.S. has functioned as the center of gravity for the imperialist system. It has been the defining political and economic power. Almost every capitalist country and its colonized so-called dependent paid tribute and to the extent possible model their economic and political systems on those of the US. This, along with the evolving economic structures, is what is now often referred to as globalization. What is increasingly clear today is that the contradictions reflecting the deep crisis of the global social system of parasitism are concentrated in the United States and represent an unraveling of colonial white power that is growing in visibility with each passing day. And I want to emphasize colonial white power. We don't say that enough because that's what it is. That's what you see, the murder in Palestine and all these other places, the oppression of peoples all around the world. That's white power. That's the white man, which we can use as a, what do you call it, a euphemism for colonialism that gave birth to the white man. There was no such thing as the white man or white people before the assault on Africa and the consolidation of a colonial mode of production. That's the thing that gave birth. And so that's what the peoples of the world have been fighting and are fighting even today. So U.S. power has been the glue that held the global capitalist system together for almost a century. And with its decline in power and influence, the fissures of the entire global system are representative of the uneasy equilibrium we have defined before. The contest between the past and the future. The contest between the past and the future is heating up, and the African People's Socialist Party is leading the masses of the African nation and working class in pursuit of the future of socialist African liberation and unification. This is the future of the victorious proletariat of the world in our glorious march to the class of society known as communism. The generation-long U.S. bloody and hopeless colonial occupation of war against the people of Afghanistan. The reemergence of Russia as a major force in international politics. The emergence of China as the preeminent global power likely eclipsing the U.S. and the white colonial world contribute to profound demoralization of a sizable sector of the US and European populations. It's important to mention this because part of what we are contending with that don't get spoken of enough in political discussions by people who characterize themselves as sciences is the spiritual component of it. And by spiritual, I'm not talking about Ooga Boogaism and stuff like that. I'm talking about the morale of the white population of the world that has its basis in colonial domination of the peoples of the world is being shattered, is being fractured, is being undermined globally. Combined with the open defiance by much of the world to the continued parasitic relationship the US and Europe have imposed on them, it was almost unbearable to white US colonizers that lowly Iranians, Syrians, Iraqis, Palestinians, along with Venezuelans and peoples from throughout the Americas and Africa would openly flout US white power with impunity. Here is how the notorious Francis Fukuyama described the crisis in a December 15, 2020 submission to the Wall Street Journal. Quote, this is Fukuyama. The American failure to observe the rules and norms of its own democracy has constituted a big blow to democracy worldwide. This is Fukuyama. Russia, which actually does stage rigged elections, has been shortling, however you say that word, shortling, over Trump's accusation against the American system. While authoritarian rulers around the world have imitated Mr. Trump in dismissing critical media as purveyors of fake news, the COVID epidemic, by accelerating a pre-existing shift in the global economy's center of gravity away from North America and Europe toward Asia, has diminished America's relative weight in geopolitics, unquote. It should not be necessary to remind our comrades that this is the same Fukuyama who declared the end of history after the Soviet Union collapsed, since in his mind, the US liberal bourgeois system represented the apex of human possibilities. Obviously, he has had to eat his words since that time. And even much of the revealing above quoted Wall Street Journal article includes his undiminished, obscenely obsolete worldview. So indeed, the second plenary of the 7th Congress of our party is convening at a time of extreme intensive crisis for the colonial capitalist system that has grown to ensnare all of the world since Portugal initiated the transatlantic trade in our people. This was the genesis of crisis within the crisis-ridden capitalist system. The following excerpt from the political report to the 2020 plenary, still corrected, describes the worsened crisis of imperialism that continues to contextualize our revolutionary work. It represents an example of the urgency associated with our plenary theme and the class-based confusion of Fukuyama and other thinking representatives of colonial capitalism. Quote, imperialism, this is from the 2020 plenary, imperialism is experiencing obvious disarray. The international bourgeoisie is split in 1,000 different ways. Raging wars and threats of war continue unabated. This is 2020 that I'm quoting from. Traditional bourgeois alliances are under severe stress due to growing competition between parasitic international thieves for shrinking access to the colonial resources. They are fighting over resources violently extracted at the expense of our lives and freedoms and totally necessary for the continued success of the global capitalist system. The economic configuration of the world is undergoing transformation at this very moment. Trade wars between China and the US. The Brexit crisis that has paralyzed England politically and disrupted strategic assumptions of capitalist development in Europe and the world. The growing split between the wealthy North and poor South, threatening the future of Spain. The disruptive emergence of an energized, if economically challenged, Russia contesting US hegemony in the Middle East and upsetting the balance of forces in Europe and elsewhere. The audacious China that sometimes aligned with Russia is increasingly willing to openly contend with the US. These are just a few of the examples of imperialism experiencing existential crisis. There are others: Korea, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, Afghanistan, most of the Americas. Uninformed and poorly led battles are raging across the African continent. This is complicated by the contest for economic and political advantage between China, the US, and former European colonizers. This is a contest that does not have the advantage of a fully developed, coherent African internationalist informed and organized effort by Africans to conquer power in our own name and in our own interests. The US is the headquarters of a dying imperialism, as we have known it for the last 70 years at least. It is the center of the storm, wreaking havoc with imperialist unity internationally, in part because of domestic imperialist disunity. A naked battle is going on between the Trump regime and other sectors of the bourgeoisie, sometimes within his own regime. Trump's election failed to resolve the generally nonviolent battle for control of the state, which bourgeois elections are designed to do. This is the contest we have characterized as an uneasy equilibrium. The task of our party is to tip the scales of history to the advantage of the oppressed, to the advantage of the future. Our job is to negate the system of colonial capitalism by replacing it with a system of socialism resting on a foundation of a totally liberated and united African continent. Our Africa must be led by the forcibly dispersed African nation under the leadership of the advanced detachment of the African working class, whose very existence has been in preparation for this task. Comrades, this is the contest within which we must examine both our readiness and unity to achieve the aims demanded of us at this moment, unquote. So this is from the 2020 political report to our plenary, second to our first plenary. So this is the context of African internationalist analysis of the deepening crisis of imperialism unfolding before our eyes, minute by minute. And we're sitting here today and we're engaged in this discussion right now, this study right now. We're summing up the last year, but the foundation for what we're doing over the last year has its origin in the work that we've been involved in now for more than 50 years. And I think it's really important to attach what we're doing now and to a fact that is based on the strategic objectives that we've declared for ourselves. That's based on an actual program to advance the struggle for African liberation, and for the workers of the world. It's not just something we just popped up and said, let's do it because Biden is a bad guy, because Trump is a bad guy, or because Palestine is being attacked. We anticipated Palestine. We know that the US and the colonial power cannot exist without what it does to Palestine, what it does to Black people around the world. That is a condition for its existence. We know that. And we've summed that up all along. And that's why we say that the struggle has to be about more than simply defending Palestine. We have to defend Palestine within the context of recognition that Palestine now represents a weak point in the whole imperialist order, and that the success of the revolution in general against colonialism in many ways has a stake in advancing the struggle of people, of the Palestinian people, against this white nationalist imposition on the lives and rights and dignity of the people in Palestine. So we say that even before his election as US president in 2016, Donald Trump had already begun to sully the pristine reputation of the US presidential electoral process. He won the affection of millions of US settler colonialist voters during campaign debates by exposing his opponents as paid puppets of the rich, confessing that he paid some himself. This is really important because Trump appealed to all those white people that the so-called white left, the so-called anti-imperialists, had simply marked off as backwards, and what have you. He went to them, he got to them, and he criticized the system. He criticized the system even as he was intending to absorb it or to dominate it, etc. He raised serious criticism, and this is something that even white leftists refuse to do when they pretended to be running for office, pretended to be running, even like a so-called, what's this guy's name? Bernie Sanders, you know, the Walmart socialist, the guy who I call him Walmart socialist because he has said his socialism looks like $15 an hour over a number of years, after a number of years, et cetera. I mean, that's what Walmart pays workers right now. So that's the kind of socialism he was talking about. That's the white left. That's the anti-imperialist force. They don't contest the system itself, except sometimes in grandiose, abstract ways. You know how you know they don't contest the system? Because they do not work under the leadership of the African Revolution, of the Mexican Revolution, of the colonized peoples of the world, upon whose backs this whole system rests. So, speaking of Trump, he won the affection of millions of U.S. settler colonialist voters during campaign debates by exposing his opponents as paid puppets of the rich, confessing that he paid some himself. However, what Trump's election did not accomplish was the capture of control of the colonialist state, the bureaucracy and arms of coercion, such as the military, intelligence, police, prison, and so-called criminal justice system. This meant that the electoral process failed to resolve this critical issue necessary for stable rule. This is how the thing is supposed to work. The contending sectors of the bourgeoisie, they don't move to overturn the system. They are like the so-called white leftists. They're not trying to overturn the system. They're trying to find a way to moderate it, to find a place in it, to advance their own interests within the system. And so the system is designed for this nonviolent contest between contending sectors of the ruling class. So you can debate, you can argue, you can have all these things, you know, in every instance you see a presidential candidate, there's what they call a lobbyist, a major lobbyist who run the campaigns so that the campaigns speak to the interests of the bourgeoisie. So this is how the thing usually happens. And so the sector of the bourgeoisie that prevails in this contest usually ends up with control of the state apparatus. That now you see people who are associated with Trump and others now beginning to call the deep state. Well, that's recognition of the existence of the state. The state is real. And this is what this election is supposed to be able to resolve this struggle between sectors of the bourgeoisie, non-violently struggling for control of the state to their own economic and political advantage. But in this instance, it didn't happen. And so Trump didn't succeed immediately in capturing those entities or that entity. So we say that the dominant sector of the colonized capitalist ruling class, having ruled the world for the last 70 years, immediately initiated war against Trump's administration in almost every way. The legitimacy of his election was challenged with the incessant claim that Russian intervention stole the election from Hillary Clinton, a proven terrorist and efficient representative of traditional bourgeois rule. Members of his administration were exposed, sometimes jailed, and otherwise discredited. In other words, Trump suffered the same process of defamation and discrediting that he is claimed to have used in disputing Biden's 2020 election. During the 2020 election campaign and after his defeat at the polls, Trump began to declare that the election was fraudulent, rigged, that this was unprecedented. This was unprecedented. The president of the United States avowing that the presidential election was phony. For a while after his election defeat, Trump promoted the rumor that he might not voluntarily leave the White House upon legal completion of his term. The president of the United States was saying that the U.S. electoral process, the primary feature of U.S. democracy that is historically held over the heads of colonized countries the world over, is a sham. This was a major indictment of U.S. Representative legitimacy, especially coming from the U.S. president. The turnout for the 2020 presidential election was the highest in over 100 years. More than 65% of registered voters in the United States participated in the highly polarized presidential election. Donald Trump received the second highest vote of any presidential candidate in U.S. history, second only to Biden, who was credited
with 80 million or more votes and got the highest numbers of votes in U.S. history. Got to remember that. This is the contest we're talking about here. The fact that Trump received an estimated 57% of the white colonizer vote, similar to his 2016 tally, speaks volumes about how the crisis of imperialism is articulating itself domestically within the U.S. Contributing to the crisis is the fact that many Africans experience the white colonizer vote for Trump as a vote against Africans. At least half the people in the U.S., mostly white, mostly colonizers, are now convinced that the election was stolen from Trump and from them. Their passionate conviction was on display for days during and after the election in protest demonstrations in a number of states. Post-election pro-Trump protests resulted in at least one person being shot and several others stabbed even before January 6th. Even so, this was not as bad as predicted by political prognosticators and some intelligence agencies. All hell broke out in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, the day the U.S. Congress was to certify the election of Biden. Thousands of white people responded to Trump's call to come to Washington, D.C., and to lead the people in the fight for the future of the U.S. against Biden's congressional certification. And fight they did, successfully breaching the security pretensions and actually taking the Capitol. Pictures of mobs desecrating the presumptuous bastion of U.S. authority and democracy resemble those seen in the aftermath of U.S.-initiated coups against other countries. Demonstrably, the Democratic masses were involved in overturning furniture, decor, and reigning despotism, perched feet up at the desk of illegitimate thugs in power. How this happened is one of the issues that must be resolved by the ruling class in a manner that masks the depth of the crisis that's still going on. The ruling class is trying to convince the world that the crisis is contained while still struggling to contain the wrath of the U.S. white settler population. Trump's claim of a soft coup against his regime and the general belief within the ruling Republican Party and the white colonial population that it is true, and the surfacing of armed, organized white nationalist colonialists who genuinely believe that Trump's electoral defeat marks the end of Western or white civilization, promises a rocky road ahead for President Biden and for U.S. political stability altogether. The unprecedented declaration by the head of Joint Chiefs of Staff, the heads of all U.S. military forces, that the military stands with the election of Biden and is intolerant of riots, was obviously necessary to calm the fears of U.S. government and leaders, especially those of the Congress whose fearfulness was palpable in every breathless interview given following the attack on the Capitol. Some people may remember that. But it was also necessary to assure the peoples and governments of the world that the U.S. government was secure, while at the same time publicly reinforcing the justification of neutralizing Trump as the leader of the attack on the Capitol. On January 13, 1 week after the attack on the Capitol, the U.S. House of Representatives initiated impeachment proceedings against Trump, the first time in U.S. history that a U.S. president has been impeached twice. Troop deployment was also beefed up at the state capitol with up to 25,000 troops at Biden's January 20 inauguration. The significance of this deployment is helped by recognizing that this number is up to 5 times greater than the number of U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. War on the home front, crisis on steroids. Even after the traditional method of determining the victor in U.S. presidential elections, which declared Joe Biden Trump's opponent from the ruling Democratic Party, U.S. president-elect, Trump and many others refused to accept the decision. Scores of lawsuits were filed by Trump to have results thrown out that did not favor his reelection. Officials from Trump's Republican Party who had the temerity to defend the legitimacy of the system faced the public wrath of Trump, and at least one was fired from his administration. Up to this day, Trump has refused to abide by the long-standing tradition of losing candidacy concession as one of the means to support the stability and confidence in the notion of U.S. peaceful transfer of power from one capitalist representative to another. Whatever. What we must keep in mind is the truth that the attack by U.S. colonizers on the colonial government is an attack on a government that is always attacking domestically colonized African population. Colonialism is by definition violent, and it does not matter whether the colonizer is liberal or conservative, right-wing or otherwise. It is colonialism, the domination of our people for economic gain and political advantage by a foreign and alien power. So I just wanted to say that I wanted to go over this to help to contextualize the work that we've done over the last year. And all of that has been a part of the process of deconstructing this colonial relationship that we have, that African people must be free. And we don't get free just by jumping on anything that comes along, that the struggle has to be tethered to some kind of a strategic objective that's connected to theory, to revolutionary theory. Otherwise, again, we are whipsaw moving this way and that way, and sometimes against our own interests. And so I want to say those things and to really appreciate everybody for being here and the incredible presentation that was provided to us by Comrade Director Akile Anai that shows some of the work that we've done over the last year. But as I said, you can see in the work that we've done over the last year rests upon a foundation of work that's been going on really for more than 50 years now. So thank you, comrades, and turn it back over to you, Comrade Akile. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. And wow, I just really want to appreciate you for obviously, first of all, just the leadership and for taking us through that reading. And, there's a such thing as a fortune teller, and we don't, need to be fortune tellers because we have science, but just being able to say what living in this moment and, like a moment that you've already defined, you've already helped to explain, and, that we already predicted based off of just this whole history and this analysis that we have. And so just to be able to, be in this period today and witness how that whole process has unfolded. I mean, the disarray that's been discussed, the whole profound crisis that the U.S. and colonial powers find themselves in, how, their political instability, you can't call it stability, but the political instability, the warring among sectors of the ruling class just being brought into, sharp focus, and just all the struggles that they're having to contain the struggle against colonialism, all of the fires that they have to put out, right here inside the belly of the beast, inside the settler colony known as the United States, and throughout Africa, in Europe, facing these contradictions, the whole colonial mode of production, like blowing up in the face of the colonizer, the world that the colonizer has known, constructed for itself. That world is coming undone, at the seams, and the new world is what we're, laying the foundation for. And I just really appreciate you, laying out that everything we've been able to accomplish, one, has a two-what end. It's not just something we're doing to make ourselves feel better or even to make conditions under colonialism comfortable, but our two-what end is for revolution. Our two-what end is to construct a whole new world, a new social system, a new economy, and to eliminate the oppression and colonization, the brutal domination of African and colonized people throughout the world. That's our objective. And everything that we did this year and will continue to do is based on that trajectory. And as you laid out, lays on a foundation, the history of the African liberation struggle, which is concentrated, which can be found in the existence of the African People's Socialist Party. That's what, this year, represented, forwarding that. And, just the fact that we're not going backwards, despite everything that the colonial state is doing to preserve its life. We are not going back, and it can't thrust us back into these old periods. We're in a new period. The world has changed, and it will continue to change until Africa and colonized people are liberated, until the colonial mode of production, is done away with. So really, really salute just this profound study and you laying this out in the political report and being able to share that with us today, because that is our year in review. That was what just happened, what we've been seeing and what we will continue to see. The same things are summing up, deepening in 2024. This work intensifying that we're involved in 2024 and. We're going to move into announcements in just a moment, but I want to also say that in the year 2023, we also saw the question of colonialism achieving prominence in major discussions throughout the world. Everybody talking about colonialism and this is colonialism over there. And at one point in time, nobody talked about colonialism. It was the party who, in the case of Desi Wood, said, this is not a quote unquote feminist struggle. This is a struggle against colonialism, smash colonial violence. And in every struggle we've been engaged in to free political prisoners, recognizing that this is colonialism and being able to sum up that the defeat of the Black Revolution of the 1960s and the conditions that African people face in this country and around the world are due to colonialism. This was something that the party has been struggling for decades, for people to recognize, to stop saying racism is the fundamental problem, but colonialism is the contradiction. And we see people accepting that definition more and more today. And even those who accept it while also trying to co-opt it, take it somewhere else. The fact is they've been forced to deal with the question of colonialism and more so this past year because of the work of the party and the leadership provided by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the theory of African internationalism. And, so that's just as we see that and we continue to see this and, wouldn't even be surprised if we start hearing more discussion around the colonial mode of production as we deepen this understanding. But, just to say that that work is not possible, that understanding is not possible to be achieved without the work that the party does and continues to do. And, for everybody, participating in this study right now who has contributed to the ability of the question of colonialism getting out there in the world just by participating in these discussions, by sharing these discussions, broadly. And even though Zuckerberg and all these platforms attempt to shadow ban, attempt to keep this information from you and the masses of people, you participate in this process, pushing back the censorship, fighting back against this algorithm that is stacked up against the African Revolution and, making, this discussion something that people have to deal with. When you share the presentations of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, people have clipped, presentations of the chairman at Oxford in 2019 and, duetting videos on TikTok and things like that. And we highly encourage people to continue doing that kind of work to, again, make this analysis known throughout the world and also to donate to Uhuru Tours at paypal.me/Omali Taught Me, because this contributes for the ability of chairman to travel throughout the world to bring this understanding to a college, to a college campus, to an organization, to a city near you. And again, I want to really appreciate everybody who has made contributions to the Omali Taught Me Sunday study throughout the year, and call on people to make contributions, continue to make those donations to paypal.me/Omali Taught Me, so that we can forward the work of Uhuru Tours, get Chairman Omali Yeshitela and African internationalism to every corner of the earth, make it inescapable, make the colonial question inescapable. You got to deal with it. You got to organize against it. We have to defeat it. That's where we're going. So I just wanted to make that call as we go into our announcement section. So why don't we take a look at some announcements, because we've already got 2024 planned for. We've already got things lined up. So let's take a look at what's upcoming. And of course, we are deepening the counteroffensive to stop the FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party and the African Liberation Struggle, demanding the charges be dropped against the Uhuru 3. And you can be a part of this counteroffensive by joining the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, by taking the petition out into your neighborhood, signing the emergency response pledge for immediate updates regarding the trial, reading the motion to dismiss, and staying tuned for upcoming events. Go to handsoffuhuru.org. That is your one-stop shop place for all information regarding the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. Again, join the counteroffensive today. The Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa counteroffensive is calling on you to bring your skills, your experience, your creativity to this fight back. Go to handsoffahuru.org/volunteer to see the list of committees and sign up to volunteer. Build the global anti-colonial free speech movement. And you can also join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. As mentioned, on July 8th of this year, individuals and organizations across the political spectrum united in building the anti-colonial free speech movement to say, drop the charges on the Uhuru 3 and defend the right to freedom of speech. The Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition embraces and fights for the struggles of African, indigenous, and oppressed peoples around the world. You can read the Statement of Unity, our demands, and you can join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition as an organization or as an individual today. And for more information, go to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. Register to attend the upcoming Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition web event on Thursday, January 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time to expose how the attacks on Black and Palestinian liberation open the door to the end of free speech rights of us all. We say, fight for free speech, drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. This web event will feature presentations by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, leader of the African People's Socialist Party and worldwide Uhuru movement, as well as attorney Leonard Goodman on the Uhuru 3 legal defense team, and additional guests. Share and register for this webinar and fundraiser for the Uhuru Legal Defense Fund at handsoffuhuru.org/register. And on Saturday, January 6th at 11 a.m. Central Time, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations will hold its 2023 year in review. You can register at tinyurl.com/BIB2023 review. Every Thursday, join the weekly study hosted by the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Register at tinyurl.com/RNDP studies. The 2024 Uhuru Solidarity Movement National Convention takes place March 9th and 10th in St. Louis, Missouri. As the colonial ruling class escalates their genocidal terror against African, Palestinian, indigenous, and oppressed peoples, an anti-colonial resistance sweeps the world from Gaza to Burkina Faso to North St. Louis. Now is the time for white people to stand in anti-colonial solidarity and demand no more genocide in our name. Today is the last day for early bird registration. Go to nomoregenocide.eventb.com. The African National Women's Organization calls on Black women and our supporters to attend the 2024 Black Women's Convention, an annual gathering of our membership and working-class Black women who believe a better world is possible. We organize these conventions because we believe that we must struggle against the devastating impact of colonialism on the lives of African women around the world. African women from every city, town, province, country, island, and village must attend this convention. Join virtually, online, or in person in St. Louis, Missouri from March 22nd to the 24th, 2024. Today is the last day for early registration for this convention as well. Go to convention.anwouhuru.org. And the January issue of the Burning Spear newspaper is back from the printer. Digital subscribers, the digital edition is now available to view in your account. Print subscribers and to our regular distributors, your bundles, your copies are on the way. And if you haven't ordered yet, get your bundle of 25, 50, 100 or more to sell and mobilize those in your community. Make 2024 your year to get the Burning Spear out in your community. Go to theburningspear.store where you can order a one-time or recurring bundle. And make sure you like and subscribe to the Burning Spear TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. And again, Uhuru Tours and Speakers Bureau is an institution of the African People's Socialist Party that coordinates events and tours for Chairman Omali Yeshitela and other party speakers and leaders. Book Chairman Omali and other Uhuru movement speakers for your campus or organization now by emailing info@uhurutours.com or call 727-914-3621 or support the efforts of Uhuru Tours by donating to paypal.me/Omali Taught Me. And for more events not listed here, go to theburningspear.com/events to see everything happening inside the Uhuru movement. So Comrades, that concludes our announcements for today. You already have your January 2024 lineup, and really have your first quarter 2024 really lined up for you with those conventions coming up for USM and ANWO. So make sure you go ahead and get ready, because we're going into the new year full steam ahead, not one step backwards, comrades. And make this the year where you put on your resolution to join the African People's Socialist Party. Don't spend another year on the sidelines watching revolution pass you by, but join it, actively participate in making the African Revolution, become a member. Anywhere you're located, an African, no matter where you are, join the African People's Socialist Party, join the African Revolution, and make that commitment today. Go to apspuhuru.org to join today, to fill out that application. So, comrades, that concludes our announcements, and we do have time for some questions and discussion with the chairman. So, comrades, if you can use the chat feature, no matter where you're watching on, what platform you're watching, Twitch, if you're watching on X, formerly known as Twitter, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and put your comments, your questions inside the chat feature so we can take your questions live with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And while we do that, I want to acknowledge where people are tuning in from. We have Battle Creek, Michigan, St. Louis, Missouri, Oakland, California, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, New Orleans, Louisiana, Grenada, West Indies, Los Angeles, California, Fresno, California, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, St. Petersburg, Florida, Cleveland, Ohio, Flossmoor, Illinois, Southside, Jamaica, Queens, New York, Silver Spring, Maryland, Lakeland, Florida, Chesapeake, Virginia, Largo, Florida, Gainesville, Florida, Lexington, Kentucky, and Haiti or IET online with us this morning. So thank you, comrades, for tuning in, for spending your New Year's Eve with us, bringing in the new year with African resistance. Really want to appreciate you for participating and sharing this discussion far and wide, liking this video. We have a contribution from Unemployed Scholar today. Thank you so much for your donation today on live with us. And we have some comments and questions that have started to come in. So we have a comment here from David on YouTube, says, "Long live Brother Ed Poindexter and Ralph Pointer. Thank you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, for such a powerful message." Thank you, Comrade David, for tuning in. And yes, long live Brother Ed Poindexter, Ralph Pointer, Rochelle McGee, and Matulu Shakur. Long live, comrades. So,
Uhuru.
Chairman.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments before you open it up.
Yes.
And the thing is that as much noise as the powers, the colonial powers, are making about their invincibility, we see evidence that betrays the sense of confidence that they are trying to project to the world. Every day we see, the brutal murder of the Palestinian people by the white nationalist Israeli colonial state. It's a settler state. It's a state where white people have been imported into Palestine from various places of Europe and North America to take that land, dominate that people, etc. And they've become a part of the imperialist project that was born out of colonialism, that learned how to act in Europe when the contradictions intruded into the space that's occupied by the colonizers, that learned how to act, how colonialism was treating African people in other places around the world. We like to mention sometimes how when Jews were Germans in Germany, the German state just murdered so many African people in Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia, where the Herero and Nama people were almost exterminated. And some of the same forces that played a role in murdering colonized African people in Namibia were instrumental in the attack on Jews in Germany. It's an instance where crisis of the social system, of the colonial social system, where you see colonial colonialism intruding into the safe spaces, traditionally presumed safe spaces. People refer to that often as fascism and stuff, where this occurs. But so and what we've seen is that this guy Lord Austin, who is a Negro who has become a part of the public face of the U.S. military, who just recently was in occupied Palestine called Israel, and made the statement that the murder, the brutality that's being demonstrated by the white nationalist state in Israel is becoming a strategic defeat for the Israelis. And what is meant by that is a strategy is long-term objectives that one establishes for oneself, and tactics is how you carry that out. And that's why one has to be clear what one's objectives are, because otherwise you can use tactics that will destroy the ability to achieve your long-term objectives. And that's what Austin, this military guy, was saying. He's saying that you had an Israel that had the sympathy of so much of the white world, and that had been successfully portrayed as this heroic people fighting a lonely battle for civilized and democratic behavior in the Middle East. All of that is gone. Nobody perceives Israel as the shining city on the hill as it used to be portrayed. They've seen Israel as this murderous, brutal entity that will not only, I mean, it's destroyed something, I think, maybe more than 40%, 70% of the homes in what is called Gaza, 40% of the structures in Gaza. It's destroyed all of that, and been completely unsuccessful, even with offering hundreds of thousands of dollars bounty for the leaders of the forces that they say leading, responsible for the resistance there. They've been completely unsuccessful in defeating the military capacity of Hamas. But the point is that even if they achieve that tactical advantage, they've lost the strategic significance. They've lost the war overall, because they have deflated their image. They've sullied this whole notion of this pristine, righteous population suffering from thousands of years of oppression, exploitation, that's now finding a safe space, for themselves, et cetera. All of that's gone. That's disappeared. So that's part of what is meant by a strategic victory. You lose, you have a strategic defeat, because even if you kill all of these Palestinians temporarily, even if you move them out of Gaza and what have you, because they're killing people in the West Bank as well on a regular basis, that the long-term objectives are you're being able to stay there. You're being able to maintain legitimacy. That's gone. Even the relationship you've had with the reactionary Arab states, that's been diminished in a very severe way, not because the Arab states leaders have become less reaction, but because they have to answer to the Arab people who live in those places and who are all sympathetic to the cause of the people of Palestine. So I think that's part of, I wanted to say that because in the struggle that we're involved in, the colonizer makes the law. That's what being colonized means, is that somebody takes over your whole life. They make the laws. They come and steal your land. They steal your resources. They steal your life. They steal the future of your children. They steal your dreams. They do all of that. And then they create laws and institutions to justify that, to legalize that, to make sure that they maintain this relationship over us. And so that's what it does. What it does is under the cloak, they create this cloak of democracy. They create this cloak of somehow rule by law, et cetera, without saying that the law that they rule by is created by the colonizer for the perspective of maintaining this relationship. But they have raised this to everybody. Free speech is one of the most profound things that they've said. They came up with free speech because it was something that they wanted to guarantee for white colonizers
after breaking free from England and from the European colonizers, fighting against the king, fighting against feudalism, free speech. They didn't intend for that to be something that was the colonized people would be able to experience. Colonized people not only did not have free speech, we didn't have the right to demand it. We got our heads cut off. We got killed. We got lynched. We got strangled to death. All these horrible things happened to us, even if you entered into the discussion. But the thing is that over years and years of struggle, the issue of free speech has become at least theoretically generalized, so that there's an assumption, at least in theory, that Black people are supposed to have free speech, that the Mexicans are supposed to have free speech, that they shouldn't be put in cages, the children and the borders, without being able to complain about it. But that's of course is a contradiction that they have. So they can end up losing. They will lose. Just how we're struggling, because we are struggling not based on trying to make the rulers of the United States become revolutionaries. We are challenging the rulers of the United States based on what they say they stand for, on the basic principles that supposedly holds this thing together. So everything that they do contradicts what they say they are about. And so they end up making war against free speech, making war against Black people, making war against Mexicans and other people who would even criticize something that they're doing. And so they are involved in engage in a strategic defeat for themselves, even though they may end up putting me in prison, doing some other kinds of thing like that. Ultimately, they have revealed how hollow, how shallow, how meaningless this whole thing that they rest upon. And I want to say that. Secondly, I just want to say that we're not looking at a system that, for all of its braggadocio, that is confident in the future. Every time we open up a new medium, we see many of the bourgeois media forces breaking ranks with the thing that they put forward about the invincibility, the strength, the power of this white state of Israel, and how victory is certainly on the horizon. Now you see them questioning whether that can happen. Now you even see them showing the pictures of murdered Palestinian children and things like that, something they never would have done before, but now it is happening. And now you see articles coming in major bourgeois publications talking about the impossibility of Israel to achieve what is established as a definition of victory in terms of defeating Hamas and taking control of Gaza and Palestine, etc. So this is coming from the bourgeoisie. We've been writing this for years and years. The bourgeoisie just started writing about it. And they're writing about it because they're losing confidence in the ability to do that. And then I just want to pass this on to you. I was looking at an article on Today, and it talked about how Zuckerberg, who was just mentioned by Director Keeley, this person who functions to shut us down, will not allow people easily to hear what we've got to say, which says something about your responsibility to get the word out and make sure that as many people as possible see and participate in this discussion. But Zuckerberg has built a massive property. I think it may be, I've forgotten how many thousand acres it sits on in Hawaii. And what he's done, speaking of tunnels, he's built a massive bunker under the thing, that a 5,000 feet bunker with all the stuff that's needed, bedrooms and everything that they need to survive. And then when writing about this, the article says that a lot of the billionaires, the super rich people, are doing the same thing. They're building these bunkers. And so that doesn't show a lot of confidence to me that they are building bunkers. And we don't have no bunkers on Redbud where they come to attack my house, or they on 18th Avenue, Tyrone Lewis, where they come to attack the Uhuru house there in St. Petersburg, Florida. But that's a statement, it seems to me, certainly challenges the sense of confidence that they have. And it also explains why Zuckerberg and all these others would make sure or try to do everything they can to keep anybody from hearing what we got to say or seeing what it is that we have to say, because they're standing on a shaky foundation, and they are being forced to recognize that. So thank you, comrade. I know I thought I was just going to be really brief in that, but Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Yeah.
Well, this is Omali taught me. So whenever you need to teach us, whenever you need to get in with them. Uhuru, thank you so much. And yes, just really want to unite with everything that you're laying out, and just really, really appreciate the intervention. And as I've mentioned, comrades, we do have some time for questions, to take your questions and comments. So go ahead and put them in the chat. We have a couple I want to take, but I also want to acknowledge this comment from Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela about just some updates around the work that was done in 2023. And she says, the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market completed its third year in St. Louis, Missouri, under the African People's Education and Defense Fund, under the powerful leadership of APDF President Omali Yeshitela, Regina Rage Gray, the incredible market manager Marissa Martinez, market assistant Casey Mackey, promotion and recruitment coordinator Andrew Rodriguez, website designer. We want to salute the APDF grant team, Maureen Wagner, Janice Kant, and Wendy Craig, who helped secure the USDA grant. Thanks to many volunteers and donors who came out to bring fresh food and economic commerce through all the many business vendors and African farmers who participated in rebuilding the north side of St. Louis, Missouri. So Uhuru, Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, to the African People's Education and Defense Fund, and the comrades, there on the ground in St. Louis, Missouri, who made this work possible, continuing this work, forwarding the capacity to build an independent, anti-colonial African economy. So Uhuru.
And just piggybacking off of that comment from the deputy chair, it's just another glaring example of who we are. What we do is not, we are engaged in an actual struggle using programs and things like that to negate the power and influence of colonialism in our lives. And we do that by constructing the future. We don't just talk about the future, we're constructing the future while in the midst of this whole colonial terror that is imposed on us. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, this is just one of the examples that the Comrade Deputy Chair just mentioned in terms of the farmers market, but we can point to all the other things that, radio stations and newspapers and, event spaces and centers and just a host of other things that we have created against colonialism. So it's not just a discussion we're engaged in, we are building the future. And that's what we say, not one step backwards. We are building the future now. This is the contest between the past of slavery and colonialism and the future of liberation and power to the African and workers of the world. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Again, salute to the incredible work of Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who just as Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Penny Hess, Jesse Neville was one of the ones attacked on July 29th, 2022 by the FBI, the US government, when they initiated this assault on our movement. And when I was talking about all of the economic attacks that were made against, the projects, the work of the Black Power Blueprint against APDF, Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela led us through this process, led us past the economic sanctions to continue forwarding these economic development projects that transform the lives of African people. And that's when we say we are not retreating, we are building. Everything that the Black Power Blueprint, that APDF and the Economic Office has done, is evidence of that, that we have not retreated. We have only built, we have done these grand openings, we have carried out these markets and, created the capacity for and continuing to grow the capacity of Africans to feed, clothe, and house ourselves. And again, that's the work of Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela. So I really want to salute the Deputy Chair. And as we move again into 2024 and keep doing the damn thing, as Deputy Chair would say. So want to take a look at this question that came in from Comrade Diop on YouTube. Says, well, the question doesn't seem to be completed, but let me see if I can try to figure out what the end was supposed to say. So it says, Uhuru, Chairman, can you speak to the immediate geopolitical implications of the destruction of the Israeli settler colonial state and the relationship that it would have to, and I'm assuming it means the relationship that it has to like the African Revolution and like the trajectory of the African Revolution and what the implications are of the destruction of the Israeli settler colonial state.
I think that's a really important question. Thank you, Comrade Diop. I think the implications are multifaceted, but certainly it will have destroyed a major strategic instrument of U.S. and so-called Western colonial domination, because the state of Israel functions sort of as an armed force, a forward deployment of U.S. colonial oppression. You got to remember, too, that Israel, this illegitimate white nationalist state, people like to refer to it as something that exists in the crossroads of Africa and Asia. But I would remind people that before that ditch was created, that they call the Suez Canal, that what they now refer to as Israel or Palestine was an extension of the same territory. And the relationship between Africa and Palestine and Palestinians has been there, as anybody who studies that history will be able to tell you. But beyond that, you have U.S. military deployment. You have the question of who's going to protect the oil and those resources, not just the oil in the Middle East, because some people out here say they discovered oil in Gaza, and that's what it's about. No, it's bigger than that. The fact is that it's a critical stranglehold on much of that region. It's critical to the strategic construction or coherence, cohesion of the colonial project and the colonial mode of production. And so I think that what we see, first of all, is that it's going to mean collapse of much. Right now, it's challenging the world economy. Even as this struggle is happening right now, even with what's happening in Yemen, with the Yemens engaged in a struggle, the Houthis, as they're characterized, engaged in a struggle. The economy is being affected by that. Access to that whole route to take resources is something that's challenged. The world economy would suffer major, and because part of what it would do also. It was energized revolutionary struggles of colonized people everywhere. It would be a major thing, and obviously it would advance the struggle of the African liberation movement here and every place else. Because, as you know, Israel plays a major role in keeping Africa under colonial domination. It plays a major role. It supports every reactionary force, every reactionary action that happens there. So, yeah, I think would have a profound impact, not only there, but for the African Revolution, for the world, for that state to collapse. It would have a major impact.
Uhuru,
That's Sister 4 Feet is advancing.
Oh, in the room. Oh, yes.
Yeah, in the room.
In St. Louis.
Yeah.
Uhuru.
However you want to do it, Foots. Yeah, Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru.
Chairman, since I've been in the party, every year you tell us what the future's gonna look like. And every year we get closer and closer to that goal. What would you say the future will look like 24?
Well, I think that comment 4 Feet was raising the question of what we can anticipate for 2024, what that future is going to look like. And I think that it's already begun to reveal itself to us. This incredible struggle and resistance happening everywhere is multiplying. And also incredible reaction. And sometimes what we're going to see is there's going to be a closing of the gap between what has been characterized as right-wing and reactionary among the colonizers. You're going to see a growing unity among the colonizer rulers in terms of dominating the peoples of the world, the colonized peoples of the world. You're going to see the pretext of a difference, of strategic, a major significance between a Trump and a Biden. All of that stuff, you're going to see much of that disappearing, and which is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. It helps to clarify things for everybody in the world, and it also gives the colonizer, general colonizer population, the white people of the world, will have an opportunity. It becomes much clearer in terms of choosing sides. Because right now, what they've succeeded in doing with this two-party, pretext, like somehow it's this party that's progressive and this party that's reactionary, et cetera, or even multi-party for that matter. They've succeeded in hiding the fact or obscuring the fact that we're looking at one colonial system with one ruling class that has different interests that are represented sometime in the political parties that they support or uphold. So I think we're going to see deepening struggles. You've never seen anything like this about even the discussion about that we see happening in our communities in the world about Black people, Black power. It's breaking through all of the imposed limitations that's been put on it. Movies even that crashing through, talking about things that never could have. You think they must be subversive to even get through. And be viewed and seen and experienced by peoples here and around the world. So I think there's going to be an escalation. There's a whole new generation, young African people who are now in the mix, who have no respect for white power as their parents and grandparents did. They have no respect for it at all, and who are being trained by their conditions and circumstances and the brutality imposed on them to make the greatest sacrifices and the greatest efforts to win our freedom. Young people who are not afraid of anything, they just don't necessarily have the clarity and organization and discipline that's necessary to win. But that's our job, to contribute to that. That's the work you do for FEET, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Thank you.
And the other thing you're going to see too is you're going to see more groups beginning or continuing to do the kinds of projects that the party is doing to negate colonialism. Right now, you got these groups who take up food and give it to the poor people and stuff like that. Well, that's all well and good. But the thing is that you're going to see more groups engaging in anti-colonial projects, economic projects, to be able to control our lives and our future, our communities, taking these communities over. That's what Malcolm X talked about. That's what Marcus Garvey talked about. Even where we are, we have to achieve control of the spaces that we exist in, because revolution is not made in cyberspace. It's concrete. We're talking about territory, actual territory. That's why they're trying to destroy Gaza right now. It occupies territory. That's why they pushing all the Africans out of St. Louis. I forgot how many has been pushed out in just the last several years. That's why this whole gentrification project is to deny us territory so that we can control, spaces politically and economically and organizationally. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. I think that's really important. I appreciate Comrade Fofi for the question and, just what you laid out just in terms of what we can anticipate. And I just think it's really important what you laid out in terms of, seeing more organizations taking up that kind of work. And it's just really important that we always examine, the to what end, and if there is one, associated with other organizations, because we know that people can speak militantly. We know people are talking about colonialism more, but as you raise, but nobody is talking about revolution. Nobody is talking about, overturning a social system and the development of an entirely new social system that does not rest in the colonial mode of production. And that requires African revolution, to defeat it, to take it and to establish a whole new world. And so we can see people that talk like us, that do similar things like us. And it's really important that, we recognize what the trajectory of, all those forces are. And some of it will be well-meaning, but some of it will be used as a part of an attack against the African liberation struggle. So that's, just something important to recognize. And Chairman.
Let me say that I think it's really important. Malcolm X, his oft-quoted statement that we should take our freedom by any means necessary, by any means necessary. And so what is happening is we have entered into this period where this crisis of colonialism is sharpened to such an extent that the question that is before the colonizer is whether or not they're going to try to move to take away the ability for the African movement revolution to function within the democratic spaces that we have fought for and won over a long period of time. Whether we can participate in elections, or whether if we do, they're going to say the Russians told us to do it. Whether we can go out and talk to people about signing petitions, just as is happening now with the state of Israel, how these different states and countries are charging Israel with genocide. So what is happening is that if the young people, the people who are moving into political life now, are experiencing assaults, pre-dawn raids, life prison sentences, and things like that through using these means that are supposedly guaranteed by the Constitution, then the question about enemies necessary means, it has a different kind of definition and gravity, I think. So I'm saying you're going to see young people, you're going to see a whole generation who's entering into political life now. People want to be free. People don't want to live under this obnoxious, horrendous kind of social system that we experience on a regular basis. And people will do what's necessary to be free. And what we've done is offer a strategy for that to occur, to negate colonialism through the kinds of projects that we're doing, essentially as part of the whole strategic thing that we're doing, and taking the political spaces in our community to be able to run anti-colonial candidates on anti-colonial projects and things like that. And the government now seems to be saying that you can't do that. We'll kill you. We'll put you in prison for life. We'll knock down your properties. We'll use the banks to make sure that you can't have any resources in these institutions. That's what's appearing to happen. But that's not going to stop the aspirations and the requirement of people to be free and to have a dignified kind of life. So, Comrade 4 feet, Uhuru. I think there's a Penny here, right?
Oh.
I can't hear you, Penny.
Oh yeah, Penny, you're gonna have to come up to him.
Alex Flores is asking about the significance of the disease.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you, Penny. Yeah, Comrade Alex Juarez was asking about the significance of the fact that Comrade Alex Saab was just released in a kind of exchange, but he's free. And this is something that the Biden administration did not intend to do, that the US government did not intend. In fact, they kidnapped him. So obviously it's the same government that kidnapped him. Now they're having to free him. And I think that's due a lot to what we've been talking about all along. And not the least of which, when we talk about how the strategic defeat of U.S. imperialism, this noble country spreading democracy around the world, kidnapping and illegally holding diplomats prison in the United States is a glaring example of that. And the support
by peoples all over around the world demanding the freedom of this comrade, I think is a major thing that contributed to it. And also the fact that they have been unable to make Venezuela go away. That the popular movement of the people of Venezuela has prevented every treachery that the U.S. has tried to do to get rid of that government and the socialist project that it has initiated there. I think those are some of the factors, and of course, we also are aware of the upcoming election of 2024 and how Biden would want to resolve some of these issues with CIA agents and things like that being held in Venezuela. I think that contributes to what they've done as well, Uhuru. But we say the power of the people can make it happen, and that's what we're talking about right now. And that's why this comrade is out of there, the power of the people finally. And that's going to be a factor in what the government is able and willing to do in the case of the Uhuru 3, the power of the people. The movement that we're building contributes to the answer to that question. So, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Comrade Alex, for that question. And we are nearing the end of this powerful year in review with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I did not want to miss this this last comment from Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela before going into closing remarks. And Chairman, there's also another question. Well, let me
Go ahead.
see.
What's the other question? Yeah.
The question comes from Sean Conscious Image. That's the username. Sean Conscious Image on Facebook asks Chairman, what do you think about the independent party candidate Cornel West? We were just talking about the elections, coming up, and I know this impacts the 2024 elections as well. So if you want to take that question, then I will.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion that's happening around Comrade Cornel West, and I mean, obviously, he's not an African internationalist, and obviously, we don't share the same ultimate objectives in terms of the struggle. But I do think that this is one of the things that I'm talking about in terms of we're seeing more Africans now pushed to the surface and offering their presence, offering a contradiction. The Democratic Party has, for the longest period of time, been able to elect presidents and get the African vote, not because they promised a damn thing to Africans, but because they were not Republicans. Africans were frightened into voting for the Democrats as opposed to having to deal with a Trump or with some of the others who were out there. So Cornel West is somebody that we're talking about. In fact, we've talked to Cornel West. And because we think that he has the ability to mobilize a lot of African people with some of the projects and aims that he can say free to Uhuru 3. He can say hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. He can bring Africa into the discussion. He can bring colonialism and gentrification into the discussion. So that's one of the reasons that we are talking to him, and we are watching with some interest Sean Conscious Image, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Sean, for your question. That's going to be our last question for today. I'm going to take this comment added from the Deputy Chair, again, reporting on the developments and the successes of APEDF over the year 2023. And then Chairman will close it, I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks before we end today's powerful discussion. This comment reads, Uhuru Director Kile and Chairman, I know this was only a snapshot of some of the work of 2023. Of our movement, please don't forget the African People's Education Defense Fund and the Black Power Blueprint held a press conference on May 30th of this year under the header Black Community Demands the St. Louis Land Reutilization Authority, LRA, honor their promises of transparency in face of ongoing exclusion. The LRA determined that 3 properties awarded to APDF on April 26th of 2023, slated for Black women's health programs and for outdoor youth and sports programs to complement the new APDF basketball court, just across the street and other important economic development and community projects were being unawarded because someone called and complained that APDF were under indictment. APDF fought them back and they had to rescind the rescinding and stated they made a clerical error. APEDF won the victory. So Uhuru, thank you so much.
Yeah, the power of the people. That's what we're talking about. The power of the people. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Deputy Chair, for this important reminder. And I can't think of a better way to close it off and turn it back over to you, Chairman, for closing remarks as we conclude today's Omali Taught Me Sunday study. Not one step back.
Comrade, we're overtime now. I just want to thank everybody for being here. And I want to call on everybody, if you can, you should join the African People's Socialist Party. You should join the Uhuru movement. And if you can't join for any kind of reason, then you should support the African People's Socialist Party, the overall Uhuru movement. And if you can't support it publicly, then you have to support it secretly. But you have to do that. You have to send whatever kinds of resources that you have. You see what we are about. We're not just building a protest movement or protest. We're actually building a movement that undermines the success of a system that oppresses and strangles the majority of the people on the planet Earth. I want to thank everybody. Join the party, join the movement, and do everything you can to get this discussion spread as widely as possible. Just want to say, Vanguard up, relentless.
Relentless.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, not one step backwards. Uhuru, Chairman, want to salute this incredible discussion that we've been able to have. I want to thank the Omali Taught Me show team for helping with the production, the AV and the chat moderation. I also want to thank all of you for tuning into today's study, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. We are glad to have you on with us. And of course, want to salute and thank the brilliant leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, salute the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, and all of the comrades as members of the party and members of this movement for, just the incredible work and the boots on the ground and the struggle that we've been engaged in over the past 2023, 2024, and beyond looks bright. Make sure to follow the chairman on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and Instagram, and subscribe to the Burning Spear TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. And comrades, this is just a very important announcement. If you're used to obviously attending the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study live, over the next 9 weeks, beginning in 2024, we will be re-airing our Best of Omali Taught Me episodes while the party conducts a cadre intensive for members of the African People's Socialist Party. So please continue to share those studies, the previous studies that we are going to be re-airing over the course of the 9 weeks. And we look forward to rejoining you live in April 2024. And remember, in that period of time, too, we have 2 conventions coming up, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and also the African National Women's Organization Convention in March 2024. So comrades, don't fret. Again, we have our playlist, the Best of Omali Taught Me episodes that you can reshare, rewatch, and join us again in April 2024 for our next live Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. So Uhuru, comrades, venceremos. Uhuru, relentless.
Uhuru, yeah.
Adelante. Uhuru.
Siempre.